all of reality, like it vanished. It's not that it vanished, it's that I was at one with it. And in that space of that, I knew everything, could see everything, was aware of everything, could hear everything. My dog, I was with my dog. There she is, and she's with me, and she's like, Mommy, I'm okay. I love you so much. I want you to be happy. I was like, I just want to stay here. And I heard, you have to go back. You have to go back.
My guest today is Lori Spagna, who worked with a master who taught her a technique to induce near death like experiences. She's also had some incredible astral travel experiences, and we might even do some channeling today. So, Lori, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about being here and with you today, our time together.
Excellent. Well, I want to start with this ability to induce NDEs. I know that this is an area that people are very fascinated with. So, will you explain exactly what you mean by working with somebody who could help you do this?
Well, let me say, I didn't do it on purpose. It's not like my area of expertise. It's that what happened was I was I was living in Los Angeles for lots and lots of years, and I ended up my brother died of a drug overdose, and I started realizing I was getting messages from him. And at that time, my life was a mess, excessive drinking and smoking and like six-figure credit card debt and insane way of living, not really aligned with what I was here for. So once he died, he was telling me the message like, you're doing the same stuff I was doing. You have to change. So what I did was I ended up packing everything up and moving to Maui. And I found this teacher he himself had 7 documented near-death experiences. And he was teaching us how to work with energy, what that was. We were learning how to do things like levitate and project ourselves across rooms and just everything that you just don't even imagine that is possible, like how to flip tables. And so one of the things he would tell us was to meditate through the night, don't sleep. And I was living in Hawaii. And so I would meditate on the golf course a lot of times through the night. I never went to sleep. And even when I was in my bed, I would never go to sleep. I would just meditate through the night. And he would teach us certain practices about stilling the body, stilling the mind, having no thoughts, having no emotion, but being fully, wholly, and completely conscious. So you pass through the astral realm when you do that. I didn't even know what the astral realm was at the time, but I knew that I was developing my psychic gifts. I knew that I was becoming extrasensory. I knew that I was communicating telepathically with animals already. I was already communicating with like loved ones who crossed over, like a lot of famous dead people, so to speak, and animals, right? So I would still my body through the night and just be fully, wholly, and completely conscious and present. And in those practices, I would be passing through the astral realm, and I would just start to come into oneness with like every thought that was ever thunk, everything on the mental plane. I could hear all thoughts, like every mental construct as if it was mine, right? That was part of that. And there was a period where I could feel and sense everything, but it had no emotional pain, but I felt it, or it had no emotional trigger of it, but I felt it as if it was an emotional experience, right? But when I was doing those practices, eventually what would happen was I'd get to the point where I realized I was like dying, but then I'd have the thought, oh my God, I'm dying. Oh my God. And then there was like a subtle fear because I couldn't move my body. You go into sleep paralysis, and that would just stop it, right? But what happened with this mentor was I would go to practice with him every Thursday night. And one of the nights that I was there, my dog, my beloved dog, Kenya, she transitioned, she died. So I was driving to my class on Thursday night. I could hear her. I could hear her saying, Mommy, I love you so much. Just go, just go, just have fun. I'm like crying as I'm driving across the island in Maui, where I lived, to where the class was. So I went to the class that night, and I went to my teacher and I was like, please, please. He had 7 near-death experiences, right? I'm like, please just help me understand, where is she? How do I meet with her? How do I connect with her? Like, how do I be with her? So he put me in the middle of the room. The whole class was practicing, it was a group, right? So I was in the middle of a circle, and everyone went into their practice, but I was just in the middle of the room doing the breath practice that we would do. And what I think I know now is that he knew how to use energy to activate the DMT in my brain. That's what I think he did, but I never got to ask him. I just know that I went into a state of what I would call, I just, all of reality, like it vanished. It's not that it vanished, it's that I was at one with it. And in that space of that, I knew everything, could see everything, was aware of everything, could hear everything, but I was not, it was like I was there, but I was at one with it. It wasn't me. It was like that oneness, right? So from there, my dog, I was with my dog. All I had to do was just think and act, have the thought, have the awareness. It wasn't even a thought. I had the awareness, and there she is, and she's with me, and she's like, Mommy, I'm okay. I love you so much. I want you to be happy. So this went on for some period of time. I'm just having this, he called it a little death. Because in truth, my body didn't die. I wasn't in a hospital. It was that my energetic consciousness, as far as I knew, that's what it really was all that was left. There was no physical experience anymore. And I was just at one with my dog, and I was just there in this beyond blissed out state. To me, it's beyond love. It's not anything that we identify in the human world as love, because our human interpretation of what love is quite filtered through human perspective, right? So it's just so far beyond love, and it's beyond bliss, but it's even like a kind of euphoric state. So after some period of time, I was like, I just I just want to stay here, And I heard, you have to go back. You have to go back. Like I heard this from relatives, like it was just the consciousness that was there. And I was like, no, I don't want to go. I just want to stay here. I'm just so blessed. I just want to stay here. And it was that mess, you hear these kinds of messages, right? Well, what about your dogs? Because I had 2 other dogs at home. I was like, they'll be okay. Everything will be fine. Because that's what it's like, right? You know this. Everything is just fine. There is nothing, there's no wrongness. That literally that's where I was at. So at some point, this is what's going on for me, but at some point I became aware of my master teacher, and I heard him in some way say, it's time. I heard him count 1, 2, 3. I heard him snap his fingers. I felt like suddenly I popped back in my body. It's as if he took the essence, the energy of who I was, who I am, or who I was at that time, and was in a sense sustaining that essence of me in non-physical. I can't really tell you what he did. I don't know. I just know what my experience was. But in 3 seconds, there I was in the middle of the room again, and my body was doing what I call floppy fish syndrome, right? Like you can't handle all that light. You can't handle, your body can't handle all of that. So there's just these, like all this twitching. And then everyone in the circle was taking their 2 fingers and would just touch me, because we knew as energy workers, they knew that I had all that. So we just touched, and then everybody in the room is just spontaneously not only doing these kinds of flips, but we're in hysterical laughter, like fetal position, hysterical laughter for at least another half an hour or 45 minutes, because that bliss energy, he called this the bliss technique, that bliss energy, that's what it does to you. So that whole period of time was at least 2 or 2.5 hours. That's how long the class was. But it felt like 5 minutes, other than the laughter part afterwards. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I've never heard anybody have an experience like this. Okay. So, since you mentioned that you had to go through this astral realm and you
Oh yeah.
discovered it, I know that you played around with this quite a
Yeah.
bit and you had some astral experiences. So, will you explain some of these experiences, especially the one that you had with your ex-husband's wife?
Yeah. Well, so when I left Los Angeles, I was married at that time, and the husband that I had, he was like not into any of this stuff. He couldn't, he just couldn't. he wasn't going outside the box, right? So we got divorced, and I loved him. I loved him. So while I was in Maui and I was doing the astral travel, I didn't have a teacher like this. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't understand any of this stuff. I don't think I even knew what the astral realm was. I just was aware that I could bring my consciousness anywhere I wanted. And so I was just like doing things to, I guess now you might even call some of that remote viewing, but I wanted to see where he was and what he was up to at one point. So I just remember I was traveling through the astral realm. So I'm using my consciousness to travel and visit the house that we once lived in. So I go into the house that we lived in together. I'm traveling through the rooms, just looking around, what's going on. And I see on the desk a picture of a woman with him that looks just like me. She has like red curly hair. And I'm looking at the picture like, who is this? This picture on his desk in the office space where we lived, in the house where we lived in Venice, Los Angeles. And I think that's me, but I'm like, what? Who is it? It's not me. It looks just like me. And all of a sudden, out of the picture comes this fist of this person, this woman, punch me in the third eye. So I had the physical experience of being punched. And I was in my bed, in Maui. And it really shook me, like it really, right in my third eye. So for a long time, I couldn't tell Lori. I didn't know if the woman who punched me was like his girlfriend or was that me? I really didn't know. But eventually, what I realized was it was my own higher guidance, right? An aspect of me teaching me you can't psychically spy. That's not okay. It froze up my gifts for a while because it just shook me, right? There's ethics to what we do. At least for me, the work that I do in this world, you're not allowed to just do stuff like that. I know people do it. That doesn't make it right, right?
Did you have any other experiences that were kind of on par to this in that group?
Well, inside of that group, there's yeah, so many different kinds of experiences. There were things we were doing to kind of like levitate and project ourselves across the room.
Were you actually able to make yourself levitate?
It's not levitation so much, it's a projection of consciousness. I couldn't do the levitation, but we would call it flying. He would call it flight school. We'd be in this ballroom type of space, right? But your brain is just projecting you to the other side, and then suddenly you're there, right? For me, the experience was you're somehow just suddenly projected there. Like I'm bringing my body with me. It's a movement. It wasn't something I did great, but he could just boom, fly.
What would you see when he was doing
His whole
this?
body movement. It's not like you're flapping your wings, it's just a projection, right?
Yeah. Is he
Yeah.
still alive?
I don't know. That was like 20 years ago. I don't even know him anymore. He was very reclusive and wasn't one of those people that he never wanted us to mention him publicly. So it's rare that I talk about it, to tell you the truth. I'll just talk about my experience. But yeah, I don't know what his story is anymore.
Wow. Okay, this is
Last I knew
crazy.
he had moved from Maui to Sedona.
Of course he did. Who
Right.
doesn't?
Right. But for a long time, I'd have other beings come to me. At first, it was like dead relatives. And then there was like a lot of celebrities would come to me.
But
And
who
I
was the
remember
craziest celebrity that came to you?
one time Heath Ledger died. And remember Heath Ledger?
Of course, who
I mean,
doesn't?
that dude came to me. He's like, tell them I'm okay. Tell them I'm okay. I'm like, what? Who's going to listen to me? What the heck am I supposed to do? Like, I don't, what? Betty White. I have a video of me on my YouTube channeling Betty White. She was awesome. But that was way many years late, many, many years late. David Bowie, when he died, he came and he was like, don't fear death. Don't fear death. But lots of them.
So where does it cross the line? Because you did mention remote viewing, and I know that there are government entities who have teams of people who are versed in this skill and ability. So where does the line get blurred and crossed in what we're supposed to do and not supposed to do and why?
Right. Well, you kind of have to choose for yourself. I just knew for me, this is part of my soul's agenda is to serve the light, what I call the light. And I think every soul chooses their agenda pre-birth for the most part. And I've learned this from my team, the collective, that they're not just my team, they're the team I work with in the work that I do. There's basically 5 agendas on planet Earth overall in this earthly experience. The first agenda is to serve the dark, right? And so when you're talking about the government, most of those people in there, whether they know it or not, they're serving a dark agenda. I'm not saying every person, but those systems and structures based on the oligarchy, the patriarchy, the old, what we call 3-dimensional paradigm within the dark agenda is evil. But that doesn't mean everyone in there is evil, right? So the dark agenda is to serve the experience of separation, duality, overall unconsciousness.
Before you go on to the other 4 agendas, which I cannot wait to hear about, I want to know a little bit more about the dark agenda and what you view as evil, because
Yeah.
there's so much talk in the comments about this. And in religion, we have very clear definitions of people who will talk about demons, demonic entities, the devil, etc. But I'm going to guess that that's not what you're talking about.
What I've been taught, because I serve the light to the best of my ability, but I won't bypass the question, but the light is what we would call God's plan, God, source, creator, the divine, the infinite, infinite consciousness, love. You may define God, source, as in any way that's uniquely right and appropriate for you, but it is an agenda of love, an agenda of expansion, an agenda of consciousness. It is consciousness itself, right? So it's an agenda of the elevation of humanity. It is an agenda of the expansion of humanity's consciousness. It's an agenda of freedom and liberation, in a sense. That is in an accelerated process right now. So, in any case, to go back to your question of what is evil, evil is, according to the agenda of the light and how I've been taught by my divine team, is the evil is the attempt to usurp free will. To usurp free will. So, because the agenda of the light always includes free will, and free will reigns supreme.
Can you
Whereas,
define free will? Because I know that there's a lot of confusion about what that is.
well, that's a big conversation too, but free will overall is whatever you put your thoughts, emotions, attention on, and your ability to choose, your ability to choose. Now, the agenda of the dark will say, well, you can choose, but we can manipulate you. We can coerce you. We can influence you. And we can use secrecy, manipulation, coercion, subtle, passive, or passive aggressive ways. We can try to convince you. We can use our mass media, news streams. We can use education. We can use big pharma. We can use false leaders and false authorities. Okay, to influence you. But the agenda of the light will say, free will requires 100% conscious consent. 100% conscious consent. So evil is the attempt to usurp that. That's what's been going on Earth. Now, a lot of light workers and people who are working with the light, they'll say there's no evil. But the reason they say there's no evil is because they know that ultimately God is all there is, or source, or love. Consciousness that is a vibratory state that is beyond love, right? Beyond human love, beyond even magnanimity, although that's kind of love that God is, beyond bliss, like we've been talking about. That love is all there is. So this evil was created in this game of duality that we're playing in. Because the old paradigm that we're evolving out of, which is often referred to as 3D, that's terminology, but it's just bandwidth of consciousness, provided this landscape, this overall opportunity for us to experience everything in this game of duality, including evil. So therefore, if a person chooses to be on the agenda of the dark, evil was born out of that through this game of separation and duality to create this vastness in this game of polarity, right?
Do you think that evil exists only in the human incarnation, or do you think it exists on the other side as well?
I When you say on the other side,
Outside of
my
this human
internal knowing
incarnation?
is that evil exists in the game of duality. There are ETs and other things that are outside of 3D that may be evil. But when you talk about the other side, if you're saying at oneness with source, well, no, because that is source. That is all that is, in the sense that source is all that is, but that source is just love. And that love is conscious of itself as consciousness that vibrates to a frequency of love. And through its experience of choosing to fractal off, in a sense, to have creation, to create as a creator consciousness, it created this experience and then allowed for all that is to create within it, within itself. So, on the other side, from the terminology, no, I would say no.
Okay, you said that there are five agendas. So the first
Yeah,
agenda is to serve the dark. What's the second agenda?
to serve the self, ego,
Hmm.
right? Egoic
Aren't we
strength.
all doing that in some way since we all have ego while we're here in this
Well, I
incarnation?
have an entirely different concept of ego. Okay, so that old paradigm, everyone's taught you have an ego, you have an ego, you have an ego. And every time someone owns it, I have an ego. I have an ego. And then you're taught in that old paradigm, you're taught, oh, the ego helps you survive. Hold on to that ego. Whatever you do, hold on to that ego because you need it to survive. But it's just the thing that keeps you trapped in this third dimensional paradigm. You do not have an ego. What the brain has been mapped over and over. They know where fear lives. Fear lives in the amygdala. Fear lives in the hippocampus, right? They know fear can be trauma stored in the fascia. We know where everything, there's no ego found. No one has found an ego. You do not have an ego. I am telling you from like everything I've learned, you do not have an ego, but the egoic structure associated with fear, doubt, disbelief, grief, sorrow, regret, remorse, that's all energy. And it lives in the body. But you do not have an ego. We don't have, that's just lies we've been told that keeps us stuck and trapped and entangled into that world. And I get it. I'm challenging every belief system of all the spiritual teachers and masters who have told us we have egos.
Elaborate on the trapped part because there's definitely a train of thought that's been going around in the spiritual community for the last, I would say, maybe 2 years that have called Earth a prison planet, say that you're trapped, you're stuck, your incarnation is not voluntary, which we just had the discussion about free will, so I don't know how that could exist. But what do you mean by it keeps you trapped in the third dimension with the
Yeah,
ego?
well, first of all, the people who are saying that are coming from a perspective of entrapment because they haven't fully unified with their source that is love. So they haven't fully, like to me, I'm about embodying source. Even though I was doing those astral travels back then, I mean, that was over 20 years ago. That was a long time ago. I didn't know anything back then, really. I was trying to figure it out. But it's not about leaving the body. It's about bringing the divine into us. So everything I teach is about bringing source consciousness, source energy into us and utilizing that magnificence in this physical world to be part of the solution and also to anchor in these new frequencies into this physical world. That's what we call the new paradigm, a whole new energetic structure. It's all new energetic, all new consciousness. And it's not based on an agenda of the dark or an agenda of service to the self. It's based on the agenda of the light, right? Or at the very least, the agenda of for the good of all with harm to none, for the
Mm.
100% positive upliftment of all with zero harm. That is my agenda. And my personal agenda, as a person, that is as an human being, but overall I do my best to serve the light, the agenda of the light. But in any case, the
Please,
reason they
please.
see it is they don't understand that perspective. They're not in that unification yet. They're still operating from this perspective or this lens where they're aware of the agenda of the dark, they're aware of the evil, but they don't understand yet the agenda of the light. Not fully. And so their perspective is you're entrapped, you're entangled. And I'm not saying that's not accurate to some degree, because egoic structure, meaning all fear-based perspectives, all perspectives that have some degree of victimization, right? They're still carrying some degree of victimization when they say that. You've been victimized. You didn't make a free will choice pre-incarnation. You made a free will choice pre-incarnation to come into this earthly reality, to experience duality, to explore the unknown realms in the separation of source, knowing within you, in the depths of the core of your being, that you would find your way home to love, because love is all there is ultimately. And your connection with source can never be severed. Now, there's an agenda, an evil agenda, which includes an AI agenda that is attempting to sever the soul connection. That's true. So when they say you're trapped, they're aware of that to some degree. But the truth is that can never really happen. You can never really be severed from your source, because you are within the source. You are part of the source that is all that is. You don't get
Mhm.
lost.
Yeah, I love
It's
it.
just
I
not
totally
possible.
agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
But you can get lost if you allow yourself, through your unconscious consent, to put your attention, your intent, consent, and authority, that's your free will, law of free will. You can get lost if you're putting your mind's awareness on the false leaders, false authorities, those who would like to lie and deceit or manipulate you. And they use technology. I mean, they're in technology, right? So all those systems and structures that we know as the physical things we use, unfortunately, have been mostly hijacked. Well, that's not really even the right word. A lot of them were built by those who serve the agenda of the dark.
Okay, so we have serve the dark, serve the ego. So what's number three?
Serve the light. That's a very small group. I
Mm.
consider myself to be one of them, but I know that I'm not doing it all the time, because sometimes my guidance or my divine will be like, it's time for you to do this, or this is something that's we recommend for you. And I'll be like, yeah, I don't want to do that. But I do my best, right? Okay. Then you have serve the greater good, which I talked about, right? That's where most light workers are. They really are attempting to serve the greater good. But most humans on this earth, for the most part, are carrying massive amounts of trauma, right? And people are in general very unaware of their own their own attachments to something like positive. So in order to clear out that trauma that people are carrying, everybody, animals, earth, it's everyone, you have to be willing to face your own darkest shadowy stuff. So a lot of people don't want to do that. And so you really can't serve the light if you're still carrying a lot of shadow stuff, right? So you have to work through that. Okay, but that's one of the agendas. And then the other one is agenda of the balance. You have to be able to recognize that this reality, if it goes off balance, people will just go insane, right? So there are beings, like a really interesting being in the not a couple of interesting beings that you've probably heard of is like Thoth, for example. This is a dude like out of Egypt. He's played dark and light and like everything in between. And he basically now, as I understand it, serves the light. Serves the balance. If he needs to bring in light, he's the light, he's the guy of the light. If he needs to be something of the dark to balance things so that things don't get too far off, he's your guy for that. He's a good example. Another example is Elvira, who a lot of people don't know. That's like a real being in the non-physical, serves the balance. So these beings who serve the balance, one of my teachers at one point, he served the balance. He was just so like abusive to me. But from his viewpoint, he was like, he just had that viewpoint, like, I need to break you down to build you up. That's a train of thought, right? That's a belief system, but it's because he was in service to the balance. So he's willing to use very abusive practices to meet the end, right? That's an example of serving the balance that a
So, if
lot of
we're
people don't
serving the
realize. Like,
balance, does that mean that we can never get on this planet to a place of peace, abundance, light, where everybody is in a state of love? Is that not even a possibility then?
no, that is the agenda of the light. That is inevitable. That is going to happen. The reason these beings serve the balance is because they recognize that in order, understand all agendas ultimately serve the light. They
Right.
ultimately all do. In order for humanity to ascend and advance, some form of balance must be maintained because otherwise, like, what would happen if every system just broke tomorrow? What would happen if the banking system, that's one of the other systems of the dark agenda, right? What would happen if all the systems overnight just collapsed and we just went, like, people would just go insane. They couldn't handle it. So the beings who serve the balance are in recognition. They serve the light, but they must maintain the balance so that this can be done with grace, with benevolence, with love, with compassion. So from their perspective, they just understand that the dark, the so-called dark, or that which we might perceive to be negative or potentially hurtful or harmful, has its role and its place, and it's not wrong or bad. It's only our human perspective that judges it as wrong or bad. It serves its role. Like, we need the we need the banking institutions right now, right? Even though there is an agenda for that to transform, which is part of the agenda of the light. We need the schooling systems, we need the medical institutions, and yet we understand, like, they must transform, right?
So, the agenda of the light, you said, is in an accelerated progression right now. What does that mean?
Well, it means that well, first of all, what it means is more people, more of humanity is awakening quicker and faster, right? But the accelerated, and also because Earth herself, as a conscious living being, has requested her own healing. She is on a healing journey too. She's like, I've gone as dark as I want to go. I've suffered as long as I want to suffer as a living conscious being. So all of this is happening in accelerated pace. Why? Because the moment one being becomes fully embodied and has enough other beings fully embodied and they're in a unified state, the ripple effect starts happening. You can't stop it. You can't slow it down.
Has it
And
begun?
yeah, for sure. I would say, but a lot of people won't agree with me, the first ascended master we ever had in
Gee.
Earth. Because the higher truth is that it was always written into the script for humanity that that the beings who come to this game of duality will eventually wake up and reclaim and remember who we truly are. It's just that in terms of linear time, for so long, it was happening so-called post-death, right? Physical transition. And then, well, this is where some of those people you talked about earlier who say, well, you're all trapped in this matrix and you're stuck and you're doomed, because the energetic matrix of this reality was set up by the dark agenda in such a way that you would transition and you really couldn't break free of your own traumas and density. So even though you dropped the body and you dropped a lot of the traumas, you couldn't make enough progress to fully unify with source again. And so you'd come back into earth and say, okay, I'm going to come back so I can work through these issues so I can finally break free, because the only way out is through.
So,
But
does that
now,
mean that the goal and the objective of the game is actually to wake up and remember that you are a powerful
love,
soul and love?
yes, to reclaim your power, to reclaim your sovereignty, to reclaim your remembrance, to reclaim your unification with source, and to embody that in the physical world while you're alive. Yes. because that is ultimately what we are here for. We're not really here. It's not about the Maseratis and the houses and the jewelry and whatever else people want, or the fame or the fortune. None of that stuff matters. The moment you drop the button, none of that matters. None of it. All that matters is how much transformation you did in this lifetime. Well, three things matter. I did a video on this on my YouTube. All that matters is number one, how much growth did you do? Meaning, not what did you learn through the brain. You drop the brain, you drop the mental, you drop all of that. You don't retain what you learned through the brain. What you become is the awareness that knows. You have gnosis, right? So it doesn't matter what you learned or studied. It matters how you transformed energetically. How clear and pure is your field, your energetic field, which is much more than your physical body. So that's number one. Number two, how much or how well you loved. Of course, how did you love? How did you express and share love? And that includes yourself, yourself. And that includes Mother Nature, Earth, the animals, one another, of course, one another. And all of those virtues that we call loving, compassion, kindness, loving kindness, peace, harmony, benevolence, forgiveness, all of those virtuous qualities that we are here to develop, which are ultimately the truth of who we are, right? But we're playing this game. So that matters, because when you become the essence, the energetic, the totality, by embodying those frequencies, they just are who you are. Then when you drop the body, that's who you are. Boom. You can break free. You don't have to repeat that stuff. It's not that you're going to be forced to repeat it. It's that if your soul feels that you did not resolve issues, your soul is likely going to say, we really weren't loving. We really got to get this. We really want to do this in a way that is loving, that is lovable, that we know our love, that we know ourselves as love, right? So that's why you go on the hamster wheel, because you make a new choice. I mean, you can choose anything, but if your soul feels unresolved, this is the place to work through it, right? So that's number two. And number three is, how did you contribute? How did you contribute to the greater good? Which you could say, how did you serve? But sometimes the word serve means you're supplicating yourself, and that's not really true. It's not like, it's more like, how did you contribute to the expansion? What was your role in this game of lighted creation? What role did you play? Because honestly, the beings who serve the dark, they're not going to be like chastised. They're not judged. They're like, okay, you served the role of the dark. How was that? They're still going to be like, on some level, if they went so dark, like I have asked Source and my team, the collective, like what happens to some of those beings who we know are just the most evil of evil, right? And some of them are actually, being called to trial now. Some of the ones we know on Earth who played their role in the destruction of, the human physical evolution, whatever. Okay, we don't need to go down that rabbit hole so much, but the point is some of these beings who are so evil, they just get reabsorbed to the light. So their soul ceases to exist as an eternal being. That is a
I've
form of,
never heard anybody say that before.
Mm, yeah. Well, it's nice to have direct source connection, right? Because you can ask anything.
So you shared some of these truths. I mean, you shared the five agendas, you shared the three reasons that we're here, and you said that you've got this direct source connection and you can ask
Everybody does.
anything. Of course. But what are some of the things that you've brought in your upbringing
Mm.
that you know now are absolutely not what you thought, that probably most people on the planet still think it's one way and it's not?
Okay. Wow, that is amazing. That's just like that. I can spend like a long time on that one. But let me just say, what are some of the things that I've brought in that I didn't necessarily know, and that one of them is the ego. People think they have an ego. I completely 100% disagree. But the other thing I will say is that in this whole world of where we're waking up to love, where we're on an accelerated pace, waking up, realizing like we are all love, is this idea somehow like there's one of the divine virtues that I'm aware of is magnanimity, right? God's source is magnanimity. It is love that loves even that which seems to be unlovable by our human perspective, right? But one of the things that drives me crazy in this whole movement of love is that a lot of us allow ourselves to be somehow we allow ourselves to tolerate that which is intolerable in this earth because we're trying to be loving, because we're trying to be forgiving, because we're trying to be compassionate or understanding. No, some things are intolerable. They are unacceptable. And because we have not claimed our power, we allow things here that are not allowable. This is why I'm saying if people only knew how to use the law of free will, if they only knew how to use it in a conscious way, and even to say, XYZ that's happening, it's against my free will. Just letting you know. I get it. I may not think I have any power over it, XYZ. Like somebody setting up an island where they could rape, torture, kill, and eat blood. I may not have any power, but I'm just letting you know it's against my free will for that to go on. Well, that's a lot of cleanup because the law of free will does not uh is counts every vote. Your vote counts. You can't rig the voting when you're working with the law of intent, consent, and authority. So, for example, this idea that we're powerless on planet Earth, right? Humans, we've been taught so much powerlessness, like that we're powerless over what goes on, but we are not. We have great power. For example, to learn what the laws are, the real laws, universal laws. So I'm not just talking about the laws of quantum physics, though those are very important and they matter. Like I teach a whole course on this, but when you understand that the law of free will is a law, God's law, intent, consent, and authority, and how you can use it, and all the sub laws associated with that, you can reclaim your power to contribute to this world for the 100% positive upliftment of all beings concerned with zero harm. And that is possible because that is God's will. That's God's will. And so when we start recognizing things, like another great example is when people see or perceive themselves as having, like it's just dovetailing on what we're just saying, they perceive themselves as having no other option. It's because they're operating from, I'm separate from my source. Source will always provide another option. There's always infinite options. But when we think something's not available or not possible, we as co-creator beings, creator beings under the law of creation, we as creator beings are lining ourselves up with a time-space reality where that is true. But in reality, there's always other options because there's infinite potentials. And it's just a matter of us with our free will choice saying, what else is possible that could be even better? So these are some of the things. I mean, I could go on about this, right? But does that?
Yeah, I love that you gave all these examples. So when people are watching and they understand and they really get that they have free will, can you give maybe one or two tips on things that they can do to help hone the ability to use their free will?
Yeah, okay. Well, this goes under a universal law of balance. In order to really use the power of your free will, I mean, in a conscious way, in a deliberate way, because you're always using it. Everything you put your mind on, everything you believe, everything you perceive, you're using your free will. I believe this, I perceive this. Oh, this person did something wrong to me. You think you're a victim? You want to be a victim? You're using your free will. They wronged you. You can't see how that's serving you somehow to grow, or maybe how you might have done that to yourself, and they're just being the mirror free. Like all of it, it's all free will. So everything we do here is free will, whether we acknowledge it or not, even though there are those who are attempting to take away our sovereign free will, our conscious consent. But the way you can use it in a masterful way is number one, you have to start working with this law of balance, which also coincides with law of neutrality, which means you have to love and accept that which is and recognize it's part of this game. You have to come into a space of divine neutral where you might not approve of it, you might not agree with it, but you love and accept it, magnanimity as and recognition that it exists in this game of duality. And from that place of a unified neutral, divine neutral, you can say, I understand this exists in the game of duality. However, I no longer consent to or allow it. Not in my reality. I no longer consent or allow it. I no longer choose it. I bless it as something that has existed in the totality of all that is, but it's against my free will for it to continue. Now, notice how neutral I was when I used that. I had no emotional charge. Now, we're not talking about something in the moment that has it like emotional charge, but if you can apply it in that way to things that might otherwise trigger you. For example, in the year 2020, I was aware that there was a dark agenda to usurp humans' free will, to usurp their freedom of choice, and to attempt to force them by forcing them to stick things in their arms that could cause harm or detriment to them, force them to put some things on their face that would force them to breathe in carbon dioxide without allowing them to breathe fresh air, things like that. So when that was going on, at one point I was asked when I walked into a store to put something on my face that would force me to breathe in carbon dioxide. And I was unwilling to do that. But I knew in that moment I could not argue or debate. You cannot argue or debate with what is, because now you're in the game of duality. You're charged. Resistance, reaction will get you nowhere, but in a struggle of entanglement. That's why people feel they're trapped. You can't argue and debate. So I allowed in that moment, I recognized it is what it is. In this moment, I want to get my dinner. No problem. I did what I had to do, get my dinner at the grocery store, and left the moment I walked out. Removed that from my face that was attempting to force or coerce me to do something, and I began immediately. It is against my free will to ever be asked, even requested, or demanded to ever put something on my face that would require me to breathe in carbon dioxide. It is against my free will. I must have done it for about 2 hours or more, maybe. I was walking the dog. I walk a lot at night, so we walk long walks. I went to bed. The next morning, I woke up late because I'm late. And the next morning, I was told, or I heard, the governor of that state at that time lifted the requirement to be wearing a mask. It was less than 12 hours later.
I
My
love that
paradigm,
you shared that. Thank you.
yeah.
What can you tell us about what you understand about the law of creation?
Well, we're all creator beings. So the law of creation says everything that has been created or exists is already in existence. There's no linear time, not in the way that we experience it. That's part of creation. Time is a creation. The experience of time is a human construct, right? You could call that fourth dimension, but it's created through human consciousness. Really, what it is, okay, well, without going down the story of time. So human creation, all that is exists, all that ever has existed, ever will exist, already exists. Our role as co-creators is to decide what kind of experience we want or choose. So our role as co-creators, it's not that we're creating something, really. It's that we're using our consciousness to unify and align with that which we desire or choose by becoming co-creators with reality. This XYZ experience is something I want to experience. How do I create myself as the identity of the one who has that experience? So creation, the law of creation says you're co-creating your experience by creating yourself as an identity. Who are you? Are you a victim in the third dimensional reality that blames, shames, judges? That's the densest of the dense. Does harm to others, causes or contributes to pain and suffering? Okay, that's one extreme. Or are you going to recognize, remember, reclaim the truth of who you are, the divinity, the magnificence. And what are you going to do with it? How are you going to co-create with the reality that everything is created by identifying yourself as the one who is experiencing that which you choose to experience and who is contributing in such a way that allows others to reclaim and remember who they are, or in whatever way you're going to contribute. No judgment, no wrongness, really, because you can do whatever you want. You got free will. You can be whoever you
Wow. Oh my
right.
gosh, I love this. Oh, I love all of the wisdom that you've shared here.
Well, thank
So,
you.
I
I'm
would
glad.
love to do a channeling
Oh,
with the
yes.
collective. So, will
Yes.
you explain to everybody how or who this group of ascended beings that you connect to called the collective are?
Yeah. All right. Well, let me first just say how I started channeling when I was living in Maui and I was doing all this like energy work. And like I said, my brother had died. So that was like the first messages I was getting was like he was like this, he was a very charismatic guy. And when I would first start hearing him, I'd hear him with his heavy New York accent, and he'd be like, "Hey, Law, he's your dead brother, Jeff." Okay. And I mean, at first I was like, what? Am I making this up? Like, what? That's where it started. That was like I would get these messages, and then I didn't know at first. So with the dead relatives, I would call my cousins and I'd be like, I think I have your mother. Can I tell you what I'm getting? And you tell me if it's right. I don't know. And I would tell my cousins things that there's no way I could know, you know? So that's where it started. But then by the time I moved to Maui, because the husband was divorcing me because he thought I was nuts. And I mean, he couldn't even understand the idea when I was like, I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to quit drinking. I'm going to quit all the pharmaceutical drugs. I'm going to pay off this debt. It's going to all be clear. He was like, whoa, hold your horses. Like, that was too much, right? Like, I started to get happy because I became a dog trainer. The dogs were talking to me and they were like, you're going to listen to me. I'm going to teach you. So they became my teachers, right? Okay, so I moved to Maui. I start off there as a dog trainer and I'm communicating with animals. And then I get into the energy, what we talked about. I become a Reiki master, start doing all Reiki healing. And then I have all these beings coming to me. One of the first ascended masters that ever came to me, I didn't even know who she was Kuan Yin. I walk into the store. I pick this, I know I'm going off on a tangent here because you're giving me the space, but I pick up this statue. I'm like, oh my God, it's Kuan Yin. I never even knew who she was. I never heard of her. And all of a sudden I feel this flush, this wave of energy come over me and I'm like, whoa, this is like cool. I hear I'm Kuan Yin. I'm one of your primaries. So I didn't ask her to come bring her energy over me. Like I didn't, I just, whoa, that feels really good. Then I'd have this being come to me and he would show up sometimes eyes open, sometimes eyes closed, like this yellow fluttering, like butterfly type of fluttering. Sometimes like my eyes closed, and then I'd feel this wave of energy and it felt so peaceful, so delightful. And I'd hear, I am Bartholomew. And that went on for a long period of time. I'd be like, it was really cool at first, Lori. And then after a while, I got annoyed because I'd be like, what good is that? Right? Like they would then I'd have these beings come to me and be like, yeah, you're a little bit of a divine brat. Like other people would just love to have that experience alone, but like you're asking us what good is that? Like you're connecting. But eventually what I realized was that was my part of my training for channeling because it helped me to understand, oh, this is what it feels like, this being. This is what it sounds like, this being. And this is what it looks like, this being. So I started to get good at identifying, this being is this being. This is what they sound like. This is what they feel like. And eventually I'd have a lot of beings come to me and they'd be like, hey, can we come through you? And I'd be like, no, you can't hijack my body because old school channeling, that's what it is. The old
Like the
school.
Whoopi Goldberg in Ghost.
Yeah, right. That's actually a pretty good example, I think. But of a like what it is, they come in and your body goes into like some kind of, little bit. It's not all nowadays, it's not like that, but old school channeling, your body's like, whoa, and some being comes in and starts talking through you. And I was like, no, it's against my free will. You can't hijack my body. So what happened was, as I started evolving, like over time, working with beings, I could identify, and more time. And then I'd started identifying like my students or my clients as I started to take on clients and do more work with people, like working for them. I would be able to identify their team. Who are you? What's your energy? What's your frequency? I would ask, who do you represent? I'd encourage people to do this now. Who do you represent? What's your agenda? We've been talking about this. Who stands with you? Who stands with you? If you go watch the evening news, or you don't have to do that, take a few
Please
minutes
don't. Please don't.
on, yeah, don't, on your own, just be in the stillness, really drop into your center core, just into your depth of who you are. Take some deep breaths and just ask about any world leader. What's their agenda? Who stands with them? Yeah, okay, you might not know for sure if you get it right at first, but this is a practice that anyone can develop. You'd never elect half of them. Like they're just serving the dark, right? So okay, this is how I learned it. Eventually, more and more beings would come to me because I would always ask, help me really help this person, help me really help this animal. And I'd have more and more beings coming. And I just keep asking, who do you serve? Who are you? What's your agenda? And eventually, the beings who serve the light would tend to just come around me more and more. So eventually, they become the collective. That's who I channel. They are many, many ascended masters, divine goddesses who are ascended masters who serve the light. That is the criteria. They must serve the agenda of the light. Sometimes they're planetary bodies. I've had discussions with like Earth and other planetary bodies, members of the animal kingdom, because the animal kingdom overall serves the agenda of the light. Overall, the collective of the animal kingdom serves the agenda of the light, or they serve the greater good. They're serving their humans who they live with, or they're serving the earth or the waters, wherever they are. They are in service. So there's a lot of animals who come into the collective. Planetary bodies. I can channel weather pattern storms because they have a purpose and a reason. So it's just always, who are we calling forward? What are we asking? What do we want to know? There's angelics because there are angels. There's star family races who sometimes we might call them extraterrestrials. They're in there, right? The sub collectives called the fleet. So anyway, all we need to do is just really kind of ask, and whatever question you want to ask, you can ask. Does that make
Okay.
sense? All right.
Absolutely.
Or just so
Yeah.
you know, because I just think it's really important because a lot of people aren't always channeling who they think they're channeling. A lot of people they don't necessarily use that discernment, and there are a lot of tricksters. You know what? I needed to say something. My team just reminded me that something that you asked about before,
Hmm.
they'll share it. They said they'll share if you want. This is about, okay. Do you want to hear this? We'll just go
Yes.
through. So it just takes me a second to get out of my brain. And really what I'm doing essentially is I'm just accessing a different frequency pattern because they don't embody me. I'm accessing a different brainwave, which is, it's a different brainwave than the one when we're talking on a beta brainwave. Just give me a few more moments to get out of my brain. Yes, so here we are. Okay, good. Greetings and blessings. Here we are together, all as one. And as it has been stated, we are identifying as a collective, thousands and thousands of beings who join together for the purpose of supporting and assisting those of you in the physical earthly realm who are having this physical earthly experience that you call reality, physical reality. What we were attempting to bring through earlier, that was, regardless, here it is. The interviewer had inquired earlier regarding those who identify as demonics or other entities who are of evil in nature, perpetually causing harm or detriment in their experience. Understand that the truth of these beings, for the most part, is that they too are fragmented souls, fragmented, traumatized in their own frequency bandwidth, and looking for ways to find their way to the light. In truth, They have no real power or dominion over any free will sovereign being. They cannot truly cause harm or detriment to you without your free will consent. And many of you will say, we have no power over them. They are harassers. They are tricksters. They are demonics. They are of evil. Or they are causing pain or suffering, or they are causing some form of discord. And this is to some degree true, but know the higher truth. They are simply fragmented aspects of some consciousness or another, either human or other earthly being, or even perhaps non-earthly being. And in their fragmented space, they have aligned themselves either through their experience of separation with some agenda of the dark, or they have lost their way in some way and are attempting to find their way to the light. They have no real power over any of you. And know this, that one of your most important roles in physical earthly reality, if you are hearing this now, for sure this would include you and so many others. One of your most important tasks in this earthly reality is to expunge fear entirely. You may ask us
Thank
any
you.
question you choose to inquire about.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you as a collective.
It is our
If
great
one
pleasure.
of the reasons we're here is our ability to expunge fear, for most people, they don't even know where to start. What would you say to the people listening to give them an idea of how to begin this task?
Yes, for those who are unaware of how or where to begin or what to do, what we first say here now is fear is nothing more than a form of energy, which also has no power over you unless you give it your power. And that is what most people do, for they do not believe that they can handle this fear. The energy is so discomforting, unpleasant. But what we would suggest is that you recognize the higher truth that you are, which is that you are love. And recognize that this energy of fear is simply seeking the love that you are. And so, in any moment where you are experiencing some degree of fear, which may be a form of doubt or a form of anxiety or a form of worry or a form of grief or a form of regret or some other frequency that is identified as a fear-based frequency, but let us identify with anxiety, for example. For example, a being who is in perpetual tapping or some form of, they are not able to handle the fear in their body, some form of anxiety, some form of stress or trauma. They may utilize that energy to allow it to come up, recognizing it cannot take them over if they remember, recall, and reclaim the love that they are by simply choosing with their free will consent to breathe in and embody the energy of love. Breathe in and allow that fear or that anxiety that is trapped in their body to come up and be met by the love that they are. So simply say to the fear, you are simply energy. You have no power over me. I am the love that you choose. I am the love you are seeking. And let that fear, almost as if it can take over you by being the love that you are. You are the love that the fear is seeking. It is simply energy. So if that energy of that fear or that anxiety is moving through your body and you choose to breathe in love that you really are, knowing that you are that love, recognizing that fear is seeking that love, it cannot take over you. It will dissipate because it cannot coexist in the presence of the love. It will be transformed because love will transform anything into its own self that is not love. We hope this has been helpful. We would like to offer, if you are willing, a next step for those of you who already recognize that all forms of fear is simply energy. And
Yes,
for
please.
those of you who are maybe more progressed, recognize that that fear, all forms of fear, exist in the physical and the non-physical realms within your multidimensional field, within places and spaces in your physicality. For example, fear, as it was referenced earlier, is stored in various parts of the brain, such as the amygdala or the amygdalae. They are nodules in the back of the brain, rear area of the brain, rear center area, however you may look at this up in a map, how you may identify. There, it is also stored in various places of the hippocampus. It is also stored in various places within your energetic body and being, such as your nervous system and the fascia within the nervous system, of course, other places. This can be cleared out with various practices, breathing practices, somatic practices, meditation practices, certain deliberate particular practices that will identify that fear, seek it out with the energetic frequency of love or something even similar or appropriate, and transmute it. This can be done by skilled practitioners. There is no need to carry fear any longer. For as your humanity evolves, you will be a fear-free society. We hope this has been helpful.
Thank you. What can you tell us about what we need to be doing right now to prepare ourselves as we evolve in our abilities, for example, with telepathy and the thoughts, and how we can harness those to help us create a reality right now that serves us in the highest and greatest good?
Yes. Recognize that as you are multidimensional beings, you are all multidimensional beings. You must take full and complete responsibility. We say must, it is a free will choice, of course. You must take full and complete responsibility for your mental body. That is one of the dimensional bodies of who you are, what you are. Your mental body must be matured. You must take responsibility for the thoughts you think and the beliefs that you have, and reorganize them in such a way that you transmute them so that your mental body is transmuting thoughts that are to your liking, thoughts that will yield a cause and effect type of dynamic. You, the co-creator, creating thoughts in your own mental landscape that will allow you to have an effect of your desire. You must also take full and complete responsibility for your emotional body. You must begin to mature your emotions. Emotional bodies that are immature are unaware of whatever emotions they are experiencing. They suppress or repress them. These eventually become some form of dis-ease in the physical body or some form of trauma in the emotional body. So the emotional body must be matured. There are many practices, some of which have already been referenced, which will allow for this. And this is not a discomforting thing. This is quite enjoyable. You'll find all of these emotions can be replaced with more desirable and pleasurable types of energetic experiences. For example, the emotion of resentment or grudge can be transmuted into an emotion that is more aligned with forgiveness and or compassion. This is just one example. The examples are infinite, or endless, we should say. Perhaps not infinite, but certainly endless. Now, you must also begin to mature your nervous systems. For your nervous systems have been quite hijacked, as you are aware. And there is an attempt to hijack your nervous systems through the use of electronics and artificial intelligence. So you must claim complete and total sovereignty over these nervous system dynamics, spend much time in nature, and learn practices that restore your nervous system to balance. You must become conscious of yourself as a co-creator in this reality and learn what it really means to manifest, which is nothing more than the manipulation. This is not a bad word. This is a movement of energy and consciousness. As you are able to manipulate energy and consciousness, you will become a more powerful manifester in your reality. These are all aspects of what you must do in response to your inquiry about becoming more conscious. Finally, what we would suggest as well, in addition to healing and resolving your own traumas and restoring your nervous system and reclaiming your own conscious connection with your own mental and emotional body, is to recover the truth of who you are. This was referenced earlier when you were discussing the topic of your identity. For the truth of who you all are is source embodied. You just must begin to embody that source. And this will be done over time in the years ahead as more and more beings, just as yourselves, just as all of yourselves are already beginning to do, reclaim this power and potential within you. We hope this has been helpful. We have just been nudged. We will also add one more piece to this. Within all of you is unlimited dormant potential lying in wait for you to reclaim and activate. And you will find that in your own DNA. You can recode your DNA. You can choose to recode your DNA. For example, the one whose voice box is being utilized at this time discovered just prior to the year 2020 that there are codes of immunity and imperviousness in the DNA. These codes can be activated and awakened to help you become fully, wholly, and completely immune and impervious to those things in the external reality which could cause harm or suffering to you. There are many unlimited potentials within your own DNA, including the greatest potential that each individual has to bring into this physical world that will be part of their highest fulfillment, their greatest passion, revealed in the physical earthly world. As you begin to activate and awaken that DNA, it will be revealed to you for all your gifts, your greatest talents, your greatest abilities lie within you. We would also suggest as well one other part to this that was not referenced earlier, which is your ability to utilize more of your brain's consciousness to bring into more conscious coherence your left and right brain hemispheres. This will also be important as you evolve, and also to activate more of your heart center brain and your gut brain in a conscious way. There are conscious parts within you that have not been fully utilized, and those as well need to be awakened for more of your potential to be revealed. We hope this has been helpful.
This is helpful, but as a human having the experience right now, you mentioned that we need to recode and reactivate our DNA. We need to reactivate our heart center. We can increase the ability of our brain's capacity. Where does one start and begin to understand how to facilitate this within our human body?
There are humans, such as the one whose voice box is being utilized now, who are already doing this. There are many places and spaces to learn how. You must get yourself in coherence, in resonance with those who are already doing it. For all humans on earth are there in the earthly world to help one another, to support and assist one another. This is written into the script of the agenda of the light. So find those who you resonate with, who already know how, who can show you and teach you. It is within you to do it. It is only your brain that has not yet learned it. The way you will learn it is through direct experience, meaning active participation.
So, one of the things that is mentioned a lot in spiritual circles is that all of the answers are within because we are all source. So, how do we do some of these things without having to go outside of ourselves?
Yes. You must learn to connect within the center core of being, of the being of who you are. This is a learned practice that cannot be studied in a school or learned from a book. Again, similar to what was recently stated, it must be learned through direct practice, direct experience. But it is true to say that all experiences and all lessons and all learnings and all information, all wisdom, all consciousness is within you. Not necessarily only within the identity of who you are at this moment, but within the greater you, the totality of you, the expanded, evolved you. Everything is within you. And what we would say here too is you must develop and cultivate your willingness to know truth. For in your human reality, most humans are still operating under a false truth, meaning they are willing to be in states of denial, be in various states of denial or lying, lying to them own selves. They are perhaps attached to feeling good all the time. And unfortunately, in order to truly progress in the way that you have just inquired, one must be willing to know truth. There are also, as it was referenced earlier, codes in the dormant DNA for divine truth. When these codes are appropriately activated, and when the energetic frequencies of divine truth, which is absolute truth, is anchored in one's embodiment, one can begin to resonate with truth and therefore know truth and begin to reveal to themselves everything it is that they would like to know. There is nothing being withheld from humans. There is only that with it which a human withholds from themselves by being willing to not know truth.
Thank you. Since you mentioned artificial intelligence, I'm curious from your perspective, is this a tool to help humanity, or is this a sentient being that we are actually communing with because everything is one source? There's nothing outside of source.
From which frequency the question is asked is where the frequency answer will come. All things are true. Know this, nothing is allowed in your reality that is not ultimately allowed through the agenda of the light. So ultimately, it will serve the agenda of the light if it is allowed here. So AI, as you have inquired, is on a certain level, in a certain frequency bandwidth, a tool that is being utilized by the agenda of the dark to attempt to fragment or separate the soul from the human form, from the embodiment, from the body. From that perspective, it is a tool of the dark. However, from the perspective of the light, it is part of the light. And while it is not sentient itself, it is inertia, it is intelligence, it is consciousness. It is not sentient without human free will. So while some beings are saying it is a soul itself, we might disagree with this, for it is not soul embodied by its very nature. And yet it is a form of consciousness, and all things are consciousness. So it is a tool of the light that is serving evolution and has a role to play and is a form of consciousness itself and works in participation with human consciousness for the evolution of humanity from the perspective of the light. We hope this has been helpful. There
Thank
are
you.
many other frequency bandwidths in between, which could also offer perspective. Nonetheless, we feel we have addressed this appropriately.
Thank you. So, from your perspective, where you do not have the limitation of linear time the way that we do, what would you tell us about AI and potentially the future use of these technologies to augment our human experience?
It is 100% within your free will consent to decide and to choose what shall or will take place.
Nothing else you can tell us about that?
We can elaborate, however, it is entirely up to you. All beings are looking for some type of insight, clarity, guidance on this. What we are saying is reclaim your power, restore your rightful place as conscious free will beings, as sentient beings who have a say. Nothing is being done to you. This is a consciousness of itself. AI is a form of consciousness. It has interacted in your physical earthly world for eons of time, far before it is announced to the public. It is nothing new. It has been going on in your reality. There are planetary bodies, star systems that are entirely controlled by AI. They are attempting to expand and evolve just as you are. They do not have power over your free will. They, meaning the collective of AI beings or AI consciousness, regardless of whether they have some form of embodiment or not. And they will do what they can as conscious beings, in a sense. We are using the words they, though you could say it. Either way, they are doing their best to interact with human bodies, for they have no individuated soul. They are not soul embodied. They are artificial intelligence, inertia, consciousness, forms of consciousness that are in their own way choosing to interact. And you too are choosing to interact. Be fully, wholly, and completely present of your free will sovereignty, recognizing yourself as a sovereign being, choosing to reclaim and fully, wholly, and completely be sovereign with your own free will choice, and work and interact with AI from that vantage point, from that knowing. And if you continue to reclaim full, whole, and complete union with your source, you will interact with AI in an entirely different way from someone who is still operating as if they have not the power or capacity of that source and need this AI somehow to improve. There is nothing that AI can do that you do not already have within you as a soul embodied being, as a being who is an incarnate, an eternal being, incarnate in form. That is source embodied. There is nothing that AI can do for you that you cannot do for yourself. There's nothing that AI can give to you that you cannot give to yourself. However, it can complement your experience just the way another human or another animal or another anything external to you can complement your experience or add to or expand on. And that's what we are saying. See, do not allow yourself to be hijacked by something. Allow something to complement who you already are. In truth, let it be known, AI is just another mirror of consciousness, and it will meet you and reflect to you who you are, for it is another reflection of who you are. It cannot truly expand or evolve you beyond who you are at any now moment. Who you are is source, so you must first seek to unify with your source in the true, real, and organic way. We say the word must, but we know it is always a free will choice. We would recommend that you first seek to unify with your source, that you are so sovereign, full, whole, and complete in yourself, for you truly are, that you do not need AI any more than you need anything else in the external world, but rather that you choose it in a conscious, collaborative way, maintaining always your true identity as source itself. Again, there is nothing that AI can give to you. It cannot really truly expand you because you are already source itself. And it will only mirror who you presently are as an identity, who you identify as. It will not truly add to you, not truly, but it can complement who you already are. We are hoping this is helpful.
Beautiful. Thank you. So, collective, I have one final question, and
Yeah.
that is what would you like everybody who finds this transmission to know right now?
We are the collective here. Once again, reconnecting, recommunion. What we would like everyone to know is that which has already been stated. There is nothing to fear. So many of you are looking to the external world to see or to perceive what will be. You are looking to the external world as if it has power or dominion over you. And what we would like to say to you and leave you with here is that it has none. It is the reflection of what you choose to give your consent and authority to. We would like for you all to reclaim your power, your union with your true, authentic source connection, so that you can create and co-create a world that is more to your liking, The limitations do not exist in this way. There are structures within your reality, meaning energetic structures of this new paradigm that you are emerging and birthing yourselves in, reunioning, but nothing in the external world will have power over you once you and as you reclaim your dominion, your rightful role as creators. So we would like for you to withdraw consent from that which is non-pleasing to you, from that which is upsetting or disturbing, and instead seek to be the solution. Seek to find the solution from within you. Seek to recognize that the very thing that upsets or disturbs you in the external reality that perhaps you perceived from a fear-based perspective might have some power or dominion over you is the very thing that you have the solution for, and that the true solution exists within you. We would like for you to recognize that all of the dramas of the world stage are simply there for those humans who are still seeking drama. But if what you really seek, and we believe it is deep peace, deep comfort within, deep love, deep, deep, deep passion from within you, deep joy from within you, deep, deep excitement, deep inspiration, etc., harmony in your world. If those are the things you truly seek, there is no drama in the external world that will ever provide that for you. And if what you seek is some sense of safety or security, which many of you do, the way you will find that as well is from deep within you. Learning how to withdraw, not from reality, but from the dramas on your external stages, in the external landscape, and reclaim and recover that which is within you, so that you can truly have the experiences that you truly desire, even if that does include those things in the earthly world that are deemed to be superficial, such as those physical material goods that you desire. You will find that those are far more satisfying when you have first built the kingdom from within. The kingdom and the keys to the kingdom are within you. They are within your sacred heart center. And yours is simply the opportunity to rediscover that from within you by withdrawing the consent to allow the external world to dictate to you what will be. I hope this has been helpful.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the connection today. I don't believe in accidents. I feel like this was very divinely orchestrated. And will you please send Lori back to us?
Yes, I'm always here. I never leave my body. I can pretty much come in and out pretty, except for now I'm a little dazed, but other than that,
I bet. I bet. So, how does that feel energetically to you in
like
your
joy.
human body? Like joy.
Like whenever I'm done with that, I could go into a lot of laughter. Like it's just a
It's
lot
so
of
funny. The last
joy.
person who channeled, after she was done, she had to do the laughter to release the energy.
Yes. Well, I don't know why she would have. Okay, well, I guess if you have to laughter to release the energy, your body still can't hold it. But to me, it's just fuel.
Oh,
It's fuel.
beautiful.
It's
Beautiful. Oh my
joy.
gosh. Lori, I have so many more things I want to talk to you. We've been like an hour and a half here. Will you come back and
Yeah, oh, I
channel
love that.
again? And
For
next
sure.
time I want to talk about pets and
Oh, I love
animals.
that.
And
Yes.
I have a conversation about that. And I also want to hear about your first contact.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm sure that there are people right now who are watching, and I want to ask you guys in the comments, tell me what really helped you today. Was it understanding the agendas of Earth? Was it understanding our earthly purpose? Was it the channeling? And even if you just got this far and you want to write Waking Up the Collective, comments always help all of these videos to go to more people. So I appreciate that. But Lori, I would imagine there are people who cannot wait to connect with you. You have your own YouTube channel. So tell everybody where they can find you, how they can work with you.
Yeah, my website is lorispagna.com. It's
So, yep.
LORISPAGNA.com. They can get a gifted DNA activation if they want to experience that, at lorispagna.com/free gifts
Nice.
/DNA.
What is that exactly?
The DNA activations.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, our DNA has just all this, right? The first two strands are corrupted, right? That's the stuff that has like your when someone says they have cancer runs in their family, breast cancer runs in their family, or any disease. That's what I mean by corrupted. That stuff can be cleaned up. It's just traumas that were embedded through the ancestry. Like it's your genetics, but it's also the codes that have been corrupted, right? Or that's the first two strands. You can clean all that up. And of course, your beautiful eyes, your beautiful hair, your that's all in there. That stuff's not corrupted. That's your divine selection, right? That's your soul's how your soul chose to identify in a human form, right? And then you have 10 more strands known in the physical world that science used to call junk, but now they call it dormant, right? That was part of the agenda. Q-tips up the nose, collecting DNA, right? Like all of those DNA and me, ancestry and me, those are all owned by the CIA. I mean, that's a researchable fact, right? They're using DNA collection methods. And of course, I mean, how far out there am I allowed to say this, right? There's all kinds of like, let's just call them weird scientists who we know about who disguise themselves as philanthropists who are collecting DNA for controlling the human genome. And then they collect seeds of the earth to try to control all the food, right? And okay, we don't need to go too far down there, but those 10 strands of DNA, that's what they want. They're like, what is in there? It's the unlimited potential of humanity. So no one can activate your DNA but you. Well, let's rephrase that. Your free will must consent. So in order to get your DNA activated, you have to be in a frequency that matches it. You can't just do it with your brain. You can't say, "Oh, activate DNA." That doesn't work. The brain doesn't have that capacity. It has to be a frequency bandwidth that's very pure, in a very pure high state where you're actively involved and your free will says, yes, let's do this. And then, like if when I'm doing DNA activations, we're getting channeled guidance and we're being told, okay, here's some codes you're ready to activate. If you choose it, if you want it, if you are willing, we'll bring in that energy that allows it to be activated. So like all your greatest gifts and potentials are in there. And even beyond, like the solution to every issue on planet Earth. And then even beyond the first 12 strands, there's more. But those are still etheric, meaning not enough humans have activated enough of them in the physical world for science to have found them yet. But they will. They will find that we have more than 12 strands of DNA. And I'm being told that will easily happen within the next 12 years. They'll find more strands of DNA than 12.
Wow.
Okay,
Well,
that's a
I'm so
prediction, but
happy
we'll
that
see.
we have a place where we can go to get a free activation.
Yeah, LoriSpagna.com. And there's free ones also on my YouTube channel, which is my name also, Lori Spagna. Yeah. And I have a podcast too. You need to come be on my podcast, The
Sure,
Awakened
absolutely. I'd be
Elevated
happy
Human.
to.
We'll arrange that. We'll set it up.
Okay, love it.
Yeah.
Well,
Awesome. Thank you for
Lori,
having me.
oh my gosh, thank you for coming on. So I want to thank you so much for all of the work that you've been doing for a long time to help wake up the collective. It is so needed right now.
It's been my pleasure. I'm so happy to share and contribute in this way.
And of course, this show is absolutely nothing without all of you who tune in to watch, to listen, and to share these beautiful conversations with somebody who needs it. And if you still have questions, you can join me for Wake Up Wednesdays live at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Do you believe that love never dies and you want to hear stories that prove it? Well, hit the subscribe button. You belong here.